Hi everyone, it's Stephanie here with a video from My Favorite Things. This video is part of the September release class, and we're going to be using these stitched fishtail frames that are part of the September release, and we're going to be making a shaker card. I'm going to do this one a little bit different than I normally do, and you'll see here as I show all the steps that it's still a shaker card, but we're just going to make it have a little bit more movement. So what I'm going to do is I have the largest stitched fishtail frame, and I also have this regular stitched fishtail jumbo frames, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut the frame part out of white cardstock, so you can see I have two frames, and I also cut out the regular banner from two pieces of acetate. So you want to have two pieces of each of the two parts to assemble this shaker card that we're going to be creating. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my tape runner and I'm going to put it on the back of each of these frames here. So the frame is the perfect width that a standard tape runner goes down the whole area of it, and it doesn't kind of go off the edges or anything, so I really like using this, and it's a nice strong hold. If I can avoid using liquid adhesive with acetate, I will, just because I tend to get it all over my acetate and then it kind of wrecks the look of the acetate because I have dried glue all over it. So I usually try to use my tape runner if I can. So you can see there I fully added adhesive to that whole frame, and then I just went ahead and stuck that acetate piece directly on there. And I'm going to do the same process for this one here. I'm going to just add the adhesive onto the back like I did the first one, and then just adhere that acetate piece directly on. And then I'm going to have two acetate windows that are inside the little frames. Now to prepare my shaker parts, I'm going to go ahead and add some Be Creative tape to one of the banner frames here, and I'm adding it completely around the whole outside of the frame, and I'm making sure that all this adhesive fully touches each other, so there's no empty spots in this frame. They all have this Be Creative tape on there, and I'm using this tape because I want a really strong hold for when we put this shaker card together. So now I have the other panel that has no adhesive on it. It's just the acetate piece that we've glued inside this frame, and I'm going ahead and I'm going to add some sequins into this. And when we're done with this shaker, it's not going to have any foam in between the shaker components, so there's not going to be any dimension to it. So I really recommend, if you do a shaker card like this, to try and make a single layer of your sequins versus having a big pile of sequins in the center of your area. Just because when you sandwich it together, if you have a lot of sequins piled up, you may find that you have a really hard time getting them to move around. So I like to try and kind of keep everything on a single layer, and then when I adhere everything together, it tends to work a little bit better. So I'm just going ahead and adding in all my sequins. I'm using some 4mm and some 6mm, and I'm using some greens and pinks, and then I'm also going to add some clear ones. And with the clear ones, I have an assorted pack of a bunch of different sizes, so I end up using quite a few different sizes of the clear ones in this shaker thing. So once I have everything in there, I didn't want to have a ton in there. I kind of just used my tweezers and moved them all around until they looked like they were one single layer, and I kind of had them all scattered around the acetate piece inside this frame. And then once I'm happy with that and I have them all kind of in a single layer, I'm going to go ahead and adhere that one that we prepared with the Be Creative tape directly on top. So now on this shaker component, we have the nice side of each of the frames on the outside, and then the inside pieces where we glued the acetate are both sandwiched inside the middle of that frame, so you're not actually going to see any of that acetate that was glued down. And now you can see when I move it around, those sequins move pretty freely inside, which would probably not have happened if we had them piled too deep inside of the acetate piece. So now we're going to work on assembling the card. I'm going to use this butterfly here, and I die cut it from one of the new pattern papers from the new Chevron 6x6 paper pad. And I just went ahead and adhered that directly on to this shaker panel with some Be Creative tape so that I know it'll stay firm and hold on there. And then I also cut out some of the wild greenery dies from the same paper pad. I just used the green chevron. I used two different shades, and I'm just kind of positioning these underneath my butterfly. So I'm cutting them a little bit shorter because they were a little bit too long, and I'm just kind of figuring out where I want them, and I'm just going to go ahead and adhere them underneath of that butterfly. And once I have them all kind of positioned where I want them, I'm going to go back in with multi-matte medium glue, which is a nice strong liquid adhesive that dries clear, and I'm just going to kind of put some underneath the butterfly's wings and then let that dry, and that's just going to ensure that those leaves don't come out of there, just because they're not really adhered to much of anything right now when I was just kind of tucking them under. And then I also stamped a sentiment with the Label Maker sentiment stamp set, which is also new as part of this release, and I just adhered that to the center area of the butterfly. Now I created a little fold at the top of my card panel, and I just ran it through my die cutting machine with a stitched edge to kind of give this a stitched edge when it's completed. And then I did a score line at 2 inches so that I could fold it in half. And what this is going to do is it's just going to kind of fold over the top area of this little gray panel that I have the shaker component on, and it's going to kind of hold it in place, but it's not going to adhere the whole entire banner piece down. And that's kind of the fun of this shaker card, is that it has movement and it's not completely adhered down on the card. It's going to be able to be lifted up off of the card base. And then I also ended up adding a white ribbon to the very top area that I tied into a bow. So you can see this great shaker card is a little bit different than the usual kind, but it still has the fun shaker component and all the sequins move around in there. So thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.